Welcome to Revel TA, brought to you by Prospectus Labs, where we talk with people and talent leaders in tech. Our mission is to empower the candidate-employer relationship in the future of work. You're tuned in live with April Starlight. April is founder of Tangerine Search, a Bay Area search firm and recruiting agency that serves startups to enterprise companies. She's been involved in recruiting in the last 5 years on this project. April, it's great to have you.
Awesome to be here with you, Brandon. Always love chatting with you.
Absolutely. We met in San Francisco a couple of years ago, sparked a fast friendship, have always appreciated your outlook and vision for the state of hiring. So let's have some fun today.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like we always have such great things to talk about. We'll just have to rein ourselves in. We'll have to keep it in the time limit.
Well, why don't we start with something simple, like where are you based and what are you working on right now?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So we are based in the Bay Area. So our office is in Oakland. We support hiring from the teeniest startups all the way up through large global companies, positions throughout the US and Canada, primarily technical roles. So everything from cybersecurity, software engineering, product management and design.
Awesome. An office in Oakland. So let's talk about return to work. So you mentioned having a space. Like what's it like in the Bay right now? Are people throwing their backpacks on, hitting a scooter and getting into an office, or what are you seeing?
I am definitely seeing way too many of those electric scooters from, what is it, GM, or I forget what company. It kind of stands behind those rentable scooters that go darting into traffic, zipping up and down the sidewalks. Definitely a lot of that. But yeah, on return to work, I think it's a very loaded question. There's folks on all sides of the argument. And I feel like the telecommute thing really kind of is born in the Bay Area, actually, and that we led the telecommuting kind of wave for many years, way before the pandemic. I mean, we created Zoom prior to that, WebEx, all these different tools. And part of making them is we also want to show them off. Right? Like, so we have this much longer legacy of like, oh, we don't need to fly out to meet our client. We're going to join on a WebEx, right? Like I remember these billboards like at the Oakland airport, like you don't need to fly, hop on your WebEx. So I think folks are more open to looking at work in terms of what have we accomplished today rather than how long were you sitting at your desk. But there is still some tension between people not wanting to commute, not wanting to cross a bridge, or just being introverted and preferring working from home. Or, there's also those people out there, let's be honest, that are working multiple jobs. They're juggling multiple companies, right? So there's all these different reasons why folks don't want to come in. It's just, for the regular everyday person, you have whatever other obligations, whether it's picking up, dropping off kids, whatever that you're juggling in your household. People, also a lot of folks brought on pets that they didn't have prior to the pandemic. I mean, like, I know it sounds silly, but there's an entire like doggy daycare very close to my office that literally gets a line for doggy pickup that's almost as long as going by like an elementary school. So like there's a real thing there about telecommuting, kind of balancing your personal responsibilities with your work life. So I don't know, what are you seeing in the market, Brandon?
I love that you call it telecommuting. Like I'm out here, like the most powerful tool I have in my arsenal is a phone. Like I'm still the kind of recruiter that like calls a candidate. I'll
Yeah,
schedule the call now because they don't pick up.
right.
But I'll text folks, send them emojis, send them gifts when I need to like build rapport.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's funny telecommuting, and like I'm an extrovert. I enjoy being in person, interfacing, but it's a big ask. Like
Yeah.
there's a lot of logistics that go into it, especially in a major city. The cost of living, companies have pulled back on comp a little bit. So when
Yeah.
you couple that with then the cost investment of what it takes to like get to an office,
Right.
I'm a proponent of in-person work and in-person relationships, but it's pretty inefficient for a lot of roles
Yeah.
and it's costly. Like my situation, like I live in a cattle ranch outside of Denver, sold my other car during the pandemic and ride a bicycle. Like if I were going to go on site and on days that I go on site to work with a client or whatever, like it's an endeavor. I put on pants.
Yeah, I hear that. I think about that a lot of times too when I'm screening candidates, whether it's on Zoom or, yeah, I'm still kind of old fashioned. I like calling people on the phone rather than getting into a long text, you know, uh, discussion about how someone's interview went. I just want to hear their tone of voice. I want to hear how they're feeling. And I think about when I got started in recruiting, why back in my day, like we were all in a room. There must have been so much background noise that candidates were hearing. And, now it's like we're apologizing if, I don't know, the leaf blower from the neighbor's, gardener or something goes off. Like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. You might have heard a noise here. And then, back in the day, it was like, okay, we're going to get in the bullpen. And like this mindset that would make us more efficient.
Mm.
It just seems kind of bizarre now.
It's interesting you say that about a bullpen. I love getting hype. I love salespeople. Like I've got that gene. I love being around a crowd of getting on the phones. But yeah, it's like, how do you concentrate? How do you focus? I remember those days of like, yeah, I sat in a bullpen, but had to go find an office space to have
Right.
a one-on-one conversation when I'm interviewing like an engineering leader. Like I can't have like hip hop and razor scooters and like whatever costume day it is with the SDRs, like
Okay.
showing up in the conversation with a like VP of Eng.
Yeah. Right. And then be like, this is a great place to work. You'll get so much done. You'll really be able to focus here.
It's interesting. I think like what I'm seeing, I was talking to somebody that runs a remote job platform and I was like, hey, I think like a lot of these roles, especially in major cities, are return to office, 3, 4, 5 days a week. I saw a job ad this morning, I posted on LinkedIn about it, and it said 6 days a week in office in New York City, Sunday through Friday.
Wow.
I think startuppers put in the hours. Like I've certainly worked 15-hour days sourcing candidates in the middle of the night,
Right.
whatever you got to do on weekends. But to see that in the job description, like it's one thing. I don't knock them for being honest, but
I was
it's
just going to
interesting to see
say,
the
they're,
pendulum swing.
yeah.
So I'm seeing like more return to office, getting in person. I think candidates can benefit from a little bit of calibration of the benefits. We're social creatures, even those of us who may identify as introverted. I think there's benefits of the professional development and relationships that comes at an earlier stage in your career, whether it's your first job out of school or maybe you didn't go to school and this is your first office job. Like you pick up on these like norms and traits that can help
Yes.
you,
Yes.
whether they're bad habits and whether they may not be 100% perfect all the time. I think there are benefits to like showing up somewhere and learning from folks. I think about like early days where maybe an executive like pulled me into a meeting that I previously wouldn't have been invited to, but because we were already in a conversation or I was in the hallway, I got looped into something. I think that's how you grow acumen at the 10x level that sometimes startups are looking for.
Yeah. I love that you brought up the like early career aspect because I feel like so much is changing in the workforce. So much is changing just socially. And we're now like integrating AI with all of its ups and downs into our daily professional lives, personal lives, all of these things. And I think that, kind of all of the different ups and downs of the job market over the last few years, the integration of AI, the pandemic, one group of people that has been seriously affected by all of this is the early career folks coming out of college, right? Like, how do you get your foot in the door somewhere? And I see this, my perspective might be a little bit skewed because by the time a company wants to hire an agency, they're looking for people who are already in their niche. They're already skilled. They're at that 5 to 7 year limit, kind of, at least, right? So that's what I see most of the time. So I know that I may have a little bit of a skewed perspective there. But in general, I do feel like there's a lack of entry level, there's a lack of training, and a lot of what is now being automated are the jobs where people cut their teeth. They get into that first marketing role. They, do their first real coding that's going to go into production in a real product that people are going to use, right? Not something that they did in their computer science program somewhere. And I don't know how, I feel like it's very short-sighted of us as a kind of a society, but I don't know how to solve that, because from a business standpoint, right, as a business owner, I'm always thinking about, okay, what do I need to do to pay the bills and bring in revenue and make profit? That is what businesses do. So if it is more cost effective, if it is more profitable to not be training those people, and let's be honest, when we're training folks, we're not necessarily training them to stay at our company. We know they're going to take that expertise and go on and have a whole career in life, right? So, but without companies investing in that, where is that future talent pool going to come from? And this is another area, I mean, I know I'm asking like very large kind of existential questions here, but this is the stuff that I do think about. And it also like very much comes into the diversity question, right? Like my agency, Tangerine Search, we're certified LGBT owned. We are certified woman owned. And we have very good statistics, like actual proof is in the pudding kind of results about placing underrepresented talent at a much higher rate than a lot of our competitors. And so a lot of our clients come to us asking for that. And this is something that I think about a lot, because I can't create talent. I can't, we have to, my limitation, I can find anybody, but the limitation is they have to exist. I can't manufacture them, right? And so now that I do feel like there are more women getting into computer science. There are more people of color getting into engineering, right? Like I'm attending conferences and events and seeing a lot of people that are, from these historically underrepresented, or what did somebody say? Historically underestimated. And I loved that.
Nice.
Historically underestimated groups. But without having those first jobs, how do you get to the point of being senior? And then when it's like, okay, well, we want more, women, we want more people of color, we want, some folks with a disability, whatever it is, we want, military veterans, fill in the blank. We want more of these underrepresented folks in our pipeline for, I don't know, let's say engineering manager. Okay, great. Well, how many years are you a hands-on individual contributor working in engineering before you start managing a team of engineers? And how do we get people from getting that degree, or if they're the first in their family to go to college, right? How do they become, okay, I have my degree in hand, to being that senior engineer if there's nowhere along the line where they get that experience? And if every company is so worried about like pedigree, quote unquote, right? Like,
Yeah.
did you go to the best school? Well, only so many people worked at FANG companies, right? Facebook, Amazon, etc. It's a limited pool. So anyway, I'm saying a lot of
I mean, you're on it today. There's a lot of threads I want to pull through everything you just said, and I agree so much with where you were going around prestige bias and the systemic challenges that are in place today that are preventing people from high-paying jobs, access to financial security. I am under the school of thought that the purpose of college and the purpose of a university education is that it's an on-ramp to the middle class, and a vibrant economy within a capitalist society thrives on a middle class. And what we're seeing is crunching of that on both sides, with lower income increasing in terms of populations and uh, expanding wealth among the wealthy. And I think we really need to, as recruiters, be able to make recommendations to businesses, help them see outside the box, help turn the lights on. But it's a two-way street at times when you're working as an agency or as a consultant or even in house with a company to have that dialogue. And it takes a lot of self-awareness. And at the end of the day, if you're an agency and you've got a contract and an MSA and a statement of work with a client who's paying you, there is a level of client service you provide. And it
Right.
candidly just isn't as frank a conversation as it may be as you and I are willing to have at times.
Mm.
So, how do you balance bringing to light candidates that may be historically underestimated or from marginalized demographics to companies that may say, oh, yeah, we want top 20 engineering school with FANG degree experience or FANG work experience? Like, what's
Yeah.
your approach?
Ooh. Okay. Well, I think first of all, I do kind of have those very frank discussions, probably as frank as you and I.
Awesome. I love it.
Because honestly, here's the thing. I'm not going to be everybody's cup of tea. It's just some people are going to prefer working with someone else. And I'm going to get a lot farther if I am just truly and fully myself with my client. And we can figure out if this is not the match, hey, they can go find another agency and that's fine. I can go on and do a different search, right? Like for the most part, I've got more work than I can keep up with. And so I would love to just, okay, if this is not the thing, I'm moving on. So I do tell people, regardless of them being a client or not, the reality of the situation. Of course, I'm going to say it politely and whenever possible with as much data,
Mm,
because a lot of times that is very like eye opening if you're not from a certain background or you're spending your time making like business decisions about XYZ, you're not necessarily thinking about these socioeconomic your brain might be in a different space. So that's one thing. Another thing that I'll do is just sneak good talent in there.
yeah.
Like we're in control of the pipeline that clients see. So we can kind of, it's like if you're a real estate agent, right? Like you're maybe in charge of which house your client is going to see on a particular day. So and that's always kind of a balance, right? Like no matter what your client is saying to you, they're lying to themselves about some aspect of it, right? And it happens on the candidate side as well. Like they're telling you their motivations and their skills and abilities, and there's white lies and fibs on both sides. And some of it is like aspirational. Like we have an amazing team, we have like a wonderful work life balance. And it's like, is it always true? Is it something that you're hoping will be more true as you expand the team? Are you putting effort into that? Some things are just subjective too. What somebody thinks is a great team might not be for someone else. So, I don't know. And also, I think there is more great talent out there than people realize. Because at the end of the day, when I'm looking at our stats and we're 40% higher on placing underrepresented talent, not a single one of those placements did my client think, okay, well, I'm going to sacrifice in order to get this like minority hire, right? Like they are not going to pay me. They're not going to pay my agency for something where they feel like they are sacrificing. They are hiring what they truly feel is the quote unquote best talent, top talent, the best match for their position given their budget in their location, right? So somehow we're able to do that and open up the pipeline. And I think that there is more talent out there that people just maybe aren't realizing if they're going through referral network where you end up having a lot of people that look the same because, for the most part, that's how people's friend groups are a lot of times homogenous. Yeah.
That's a good point. Um, One of the things I want to like double down on is the fact that you said like you are frank with clients, and I I think like a lot of recruiters got laid off. A lot of folks are like trying to figure out what they're going to do next. Some folks are in and out of recruiting. It's kind of a fluid career path anyway. I think a lot of people like fall into recruiting or they get into HR and then they grow into it.
Yeah.
I've met some folks that are like they go right into recruiting when they're 22. That's like awesome. More power to them. My buddy's like a second generation recruiter. His mom's an exec search person.
Yeah.
But I think ultimately, for people that are going out on their own and starting an agency through layoffs, I think we've seen a lot of people do that. And there's a couple of things in there. It's defining an ideal customer,
Mm.
and I think that broadens the aperture and scope of being able to build a bench of really strong talent and place them
Mhm.
into the right organization. Because if you're looking at like a 90-day guarantee on talent, you want to make sure that the person that is going into that company is going to be a match. And finding the right clients that have an appetite for focusing on diverse and inclusive hiring practices. I
Right.
think there's like enough capital out there and enough companies out there that like if we as recruiters operate from a place of abundance, a rising tide lifts all boats. We don't need to be like cutthroat and competitive with one another. Like at the end of the day, like if you're a small agency or an individual consultant, like you're 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 like you're not losing anything by supporting your friends who are also recruiters selling to the same companies. Like that's just how I approach it.
Right.
And one of the things you said about being frank is like picking your customers, and that's something that you can do as a business owner. Um,
Right.
like I've had to do it. I've had hard conversations. I've walked away from contracts, but ultimately at the end of the day, like life is too short not to work with people that share your values. And if
Yeah.
a company isn't going to be bought in on those conversations around representation that you are able to be frank about and that you describe
Right.
being frank about, I think that is fundamental to our role and how we think about operating as an agency.
Right. Well, and that's only one area of topics that we have to be frank with our clients about, right? Like that, and, you know, not to disparage anyone's efforts, but sometimes companies will come to the table with unrealistic ideas of what's possible. You know, whether it's a job that's combined three different roles or it's a location where there's not, you know, like a lot of this type of talent, or the rate is a mismatch for what they're seeing on the market or whatever it is. Like all of these are frank conversations that you need to have. And when you're working contingency, it's kind of like, hey, we're doing all the work wait long before we get paid, if we get paid, right? So the minimum buy-in that we need from clients is like, one, you need to be responsive. If we're sending you a candidate, I need to get like confirmation, like received. Here's my feedback, or like, okay, we got it and we're in crunch time and I'm going to get back to you by Tuesday at the latest, right? Like there's that minimum buy-in, and then there's also the willingness to hear, right? If you're bringing me in to tell you the market conditions, real live time, I'm not talking about like salary data that you can find by logging into this or that paid subscription, right? But like what people are actually who are looking for these jobs, what they're telling me that they would be willing to make a jump for, what they are saying, you know, I don't ask, right? It's illegal to ask, but people will disclose what they're making, right? So we get real time data. And so that's only one of the areas that we need to be frank and clear with our clients, because honestly, we're trying to save them time. We're trying to save us time, you know?
It's a good point you mentioned about like working in contingent contracts with companies. There's a lot of different ways to recruit, a lot of different structures. I think that's one of the challenges, and you and I have talked about this in the past. But like,
Right.
there's so many different ways to
Yes.
like pay people to find somebody to hire. It's like probably one of the oldest professions in the history of humanity is like, we need something done. Do you know the person that can get that done? Yes, I know the person that can get that done. Can you pay me for that introduction? Like,
Right.
it's just a part of human society. But what we're seeing is like so many folks and so many models, the emergence of technology and platforms. Like, there's an opportunity for differentiation in the market. And I think like there's something you alluded to earlier in how Tangerine differentiates itself as an agency, and that is in some of the certifications that you
Mm.
have as a business. So like for anybody who might be listening that's like curious about some of the things you said earlier, like do you want to double down on like what Tangerine Search does that is different and how you think about the enterprise client needs and what is attractive to them to engage with you?
Sure, yeah. So there's, this is something actually that I've learned a lot about being in business for myself, right? Like getting these certifications. One, it provides you with kind of a community. So we're members of the Golden Gate Business Association, which is the world's oldest LGBT chamber of commerce, coming up on their 50th anniversary this June, which is wild, which is an associated member of the NGLCC, which is the National LGBT Chamber of Commerce. So for any companies that are looking to bring in diverse vendors, right? And it could be anything. It could be you're buying office supplies, you need a gardener for your corporate offices, you need staffing and recruitment, you need literally anything, physical security, cyber security, whatever, right? They have a procurement process. When you get to a certain size, you have procurement, whole team, and a branch of that is supplier diversity. So there's a thing called the $1 billion roundtable, I think it's called, where a lot of these large companies commit to spending $1 billion in diverse suppliers. So for large companies, the benefit of working for us is one, if they're, if we're their vendor and every time that they pay an invoice to us, that counts towards their dollars toward diverse suppliers. But we are also a multiplier in that we have a more diverse network of talent. We're very networked within, for obvious reasons, right? The LGBT community. But we put a lot of conscious effort into other communities as well and just bring a much more diverse talent pool for any role that we're given. And so for companies that are looking to diversify their in-house talent as well as their spend, we're sort of like a double
Nice.
whammy for them. Yeah. So, but it is also very interesting, really completely different process than working with startups. It is a completely different whole beast, even though recruiting for their roles is basically the exact same thing at the end of the day, right? What do we need? Where does a person need to work? What are we looking at in comp and what's the timeline? And go find somebody. Like by the time we get the work on our desk, it's really a very similar process in terms of the mechanics, but the whole, it's a very different world in terms of getting in the door with them. And also, when we're approaching candidates, it's very different when I'm saying, okay, we're hiring for Sony, we're hiring for Crunchyroll. Like people know what that is. It's like they're excited about that as opposed to, hey, let me tell you about this company that's doing eye surgery with robots and why that needs to be, why that's like the best thing, even though you never heard about it before. I am just telling you right now, this is why you need to leave your great paying job at a FANG company and go do this, right? So it's very dynamic work. But I think that is, speaking of recruiters, why do people get into this? Who stays in this? Why do people love it? I feel like there's enough repeatable process that you can get, incrementally better at doing the actual work. But the results are so varied and the problem set is so dynamic because you're working with people on all sides. You're working with people on your internal team, with your clients, with your candidates. We sometimes have invisible variables as well. Like maybe I'm talking to you, Brandon, about a job, but I don't know, like, what does your spouse have to say, right? There's an invisible stakeholder that I might not even be aware of. So it's like fun in this way where other jobs could get very boring if you're just doing your repeatable process like that.
Yeah, it's so true. It's like companies make hiring decisions based on data and candidates make job decisions based on gut?
Yeah. Is that true? Maybe. I feel like companies may make high level hiring decisions based on data, but the actual selection of the person can be very emotional. And that's something that
Yeah.
actually we try, right, as much as we can to educate against and try to go against the grain of that, because you want to reduce that bias, right? Like of just like, oh, well, I feel this way. Like I feel like I like this person the most, right? Like let's bring it back to, okay, what is needed in the job and how did this person like demonstrate those skills or abilities in your interview, and what are the other people on the interview panel think about those topics, as opposed to like, we both like surfing.
You're a surfer, right?
Yeah, I love to surf, although I'm not that great at it. So anybody listening,
That's
uh,
awesome.
yeah,
What you were saying about like convincing folks to leave their like cushy FANG job for a robotics eye surgery company, it's like the show don't tell part of recruiting,
right,
and the incremental piece I think is huge. You talked about earlier in the conversation the cutoff to entry level paths in a lot of business and corporate roles, whether it's recruiting, sales, marketing. Just look at those job titles like associate, coordinator.
mm,
It's heavily administrative work that's being automated by AI, which is great when you're a solopreneur or a business owner or a mid-level, senior level person. Like, we're having a lot of fun in the sandbox right now with AI, but I'm
yeah,
right there with you. And I'm curious, like, when I think back at my first job in HR and recruiting, it was like talent acquisition coordinator, employer
mm,
brand specialist, like a lot of the stuff that I do now anyway, that's automated. So I'm wondering if this is the type of technology and automation that we grow with as a society. And like right now, it seems super scary and we're throwing a flag, but like in 5 to 10 years, like, will we just grow with this technology and will the skills gap grow with it? So like Gen Z and Gen Alpha will just naturally grow into new economic pathways that we potentially aren't even aware of today. Like if you were to tell us 10 years ago about the peer-to-peer economy, like a lot of people would be like, what?
right,
So I'm curious if like there will be new entry points, new exit ramps, on ramps, whatever my analogy was about like access to the middle class with technology for people
right.
that grow up with it.
Yeah, I obviously don't know the answer to that question, but I mean, I think it's a really good uh, topic to be thinking about. Definitely something that I'm thinking about a lot. One thing that I also think about, and I think I'm guilty of this sometimes, but try to make an effort and move away from it, is just overworking the realm that I'm in, right? Like there's a whole world of work and I'm just in like technical recruiting. And I think that, I think about this a lot. This is sort of a tangent, but there's so much money and investment and effort that goes into disrupting the hiring process. Whoop. Didn't mean to leave those reactions on. Anyway, um, like, and I feel that partially the reason that there's so much new recruiting tech, right? That I'm getting a spam email about please try our new
Yeah.
ATS, try our new, a candidate outreach platform or whatever, is because it's just familiar, because we're like in Silicon Valley, we're near where venture capital is live and accessing, like companies are getting access to this funding. And so they think about the obvious thing that's under their nose, and it's so overworked.
Mm-hmm.
It is like new ways to hire software engineers, to me, feels like, oh my gosh, we have worked this to death.
Yeah.
We could really use a better way to hire mechanics,
Yeah.
plumbers, nurses. You know how
Yes.
hard it is to find nurses? I mean, these are people who are not sitting in front of their computer all day, right? Like some of them are in the emergency room. How do we access them? But just this thing of like really overworking the problem that you can see as opposed to venturing out into other areas. So I'm sorry, I'm not sure now. I'm trying to
No,
trace back how I got here from what you asked me.
I'm right there with you. Like hiring is so vast, and like sometimes being a tech recruiter and somebody who works with startups, we're in this little echo chamber, which is really fun. But like go talk to somebody who doesn't work in tech and just have like a regular human interaction with them. Like that's what I like about living in Colorado is like I feel like
Right.
even the tech startup folks here, like they work hard, they're A-type personalities, they're motivated, but then like they've got a life outside of
Yeah.
their day job, their side hustle, their tech startup idea. Um, to me, that's really healthy for my relationships.
Hmm.
Um, it's super fun to be all in on it, but like if we zoom out, like tech hiring is just like a little teeny tiny sliver
Right.
within like the entire ecosystem of hiring. So these companies that are getting funding and trying to like disrupt or
Yeah.
create innovation in the space, like what's outside of tech? Because if they're all just like building a mirror of 10 other companies, like what are the big problems we could be solving? You
Right.
mentioned nursing. Like one of my best friends is a travel nurse and he's like
Mhm.
an APRN. Um, and he does these like 1 month contracts and he stayed with us last month and he's out here on like a 15-year-old Dell laptop on a website that looks like it's about to steal your identity, trying to find a placement. And it's like this is terrible. This is somebody that has like
Yeah.
3 more degrees than I do,
Yeah. Yeah.
who's like worked in a emergency room pulling bullets out of people, and like
Right.
his way to get a job is this. Whereas like we're in this echo chamber in tech sometimes on our little
Right.
MacBooks, on our little AI chatbots,
Right.
trying to like disrupt, and just like it's that back to that race to the bottom. It's like a race to the bottom to beat the competitor to talent and
Right.
hire the software engineer that we found in this hidden spot before somebody else does.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
The
Yeah.
other thing about, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, I think, the thing that led me to that was talking about, again, about like folks getting started in their career. And if, will we have a middle class? Where will middle class incomes be coming from? And I do think that, obviously it is important what we're doing, and it is important for tech companies or whatever, maybe entertainment companies with a big tech team. It is important for them to have career paths for people coming out of their, entering the workplace and growing through their career. That's definitely something that needs to get some time and attention and love. But I do think like it is just one little sliver, and it's easy to hyper focus on what's in front of us.
One piece about like the innovation of venture capital in HR tech that I've been, thinking about recently is a lot of these VCs like to invest in like the prodigy, and we have like this idea of like the prodigy founder that media and tech worships. And there's like a whole different session we could do on that. But when you've been around hiring and you've had a career, one of the things that we talk about in startups is like pattern matching. And now we're at this point of pattern matching around hiring technology. And like I talked to some folks that have been around and I'll, candidly just say like, didn't we already try this? Didn't we do this? Like a lot of people are trying to do like V2, V3 of things that have already tried and failed,
Mhm.
because you mentioned the key is human behavior. Like we can have all the technology in the world, but without the human behavior element of conversion
Right.
for hiring,
Right.
like we're just wasting more venture capital that has already like been invested in solving these problems. And it's like, man, what if we just took some of that money and solved like a real world problem instead of like having all these companies try and solve the same problem using OpenAI's API.
Yeah.
And it just seems like very much like a hall of mirrors at times, even though it's really exciting because it's our niche.
Mhm.
So if I were to distill that down, I think an example of it would be skills-based hiring.
Mhm.
Skills-based hiring is all the rage right now. It sells at conferences, vendors love to build on it. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, and like maybe I'm a crusty, jaded millennial, but like we've done skills based hiring and it's been like cognitive skills tests personality tests. Like, do you remember taking like a Microsoft Office Excel test for a job before you talk to an interviewer?
Yes.
Like, um, language testing. Like we've done skills-based hiring before. So it's not that cut and dry, black and white, but like, do you want to talk about like skills-based hiring and what you've seen in a career of recruiting?
Oh, I don't, again, for what I do, the niche that I'm in, a lot of times it's this like mid to senior level engineer. And so it comes down to the coding test. So it's not, I don't think it really applies as much to what you're talking about here. And like I've seen some, tangentially, I've seen some things like, my son's friend got a job at Target and she never spoke to a human being in the interview process. It was a personality test. And then she recorded herself answering some questions. And then she got a phone call. Okay, we'd love to hire you. Come in and
Wow.
we'll get started. I mean, she's working in the store, right? So I know I've seen from the kind of that perspective. Yeah, but I'm not sure I'm like the best qualified to
Yeah. No, that's fine.
delve into that area.
I'd love to talk about like maybe your niche then. So you were talking recently about diving in on like cybersecurity as a specialty for Tangerine Search. So how do you differentiate being a generalist and a like specialist niche recruiter? How do you think about marketing that?
Right.
Because obviously, if you've recruited for long enough, like you can hire some sales folks, you can hire some like startup software engineer
Right.
profiles that every company looks for. But how'd
Yeah.
you get into cybersecurity?
So, yeah, cybersecurity is sort of kind of like at the demand of many of our clients. So, what we've heard again and again and again is it's very difficult to hire cybersecurity folks. Number one, folks working in information security, cybersecurity, they're not on social media, right? Like they are hiding under rocks. They know the dangers that all the rest of us just blindly close our eyes to, right? They don't want their identity stolen. They often, I've worked with folks, real live, actual examples of people who take their LinkedIn profile down every time they get a job and they will only put it back up when they're looking for work. So you
Mm,
only have this very short window to even catch them. And when they're on LinkedIn, it's not even their real name.
yeah.
Right? Or their real company. It's sort of like almost like they're like kind of catfishing you so that then you can
Yes.
have a real conversation and they can vet you and they can vet
Yes.
your opportunity. Because part of it is when that is your job, you become a target, right? If you're saying, hey, I'm great at cybersecurity, then it's like, okay, well, let me try to hack you and see if I can, which is the whole thing of like, going to DEF CON or any of these where it's like a hacking, you have to put your phone in a Faraday bag if you're even brave enough to bring it to the hotel, right? Because it's also kind of a game.
Yeah.
So anyway, finding folks in the very first place is difficult. And then vetting them is very challenging because again, like a lot of teams that are working on cybersecurity, they're sort of understaffed. There's not that, there's like kind of a lack of talent in terms of just how much need there is versus like good qualified experienced folks who have the level of experience needed. There's a mismatch there. So that becomes a problem when you try to interview. Okay, so like once you find the person, does your team have the time to really evaluate this person's skills and abilities? So when any piece of that equation goes wrong, what happens is you end up with a bad hire, which you might not find out for 6 to 8 months because it takes a while to get somebody onboarded and get them really acclimated to your system and know the intricacies and the ins and outs of what you have in place in your environment
Totally.
to then realize, okay, this person actually doesn't have the capacity to operate at the level that we need, or they're not at this level that we hired them at. And now you're out all of that time, all of that, salary and everything that you spent on them, all of the cost of acquiring that talent, you have to start over. So what we have been doing, I've spent the last year and a half building out a network. So going through all of the folks that I know within cybersecurity
Yeah.
who, and getting essentially like recommended to other folks in their network of like, okay, April's legit. Tangerine Search is working with, good companies and kind of getting referrals. So first of all, we built up a good, healthy pipeline of these otherwise invisible folks. And we have a testing process, which is
Nice.
actually in person. So, first of all, we have met these folks, seen their faces, right? And are vetting them on the skills listed on their resume. So, we're not training anybody on anything. It's just, okay, you're making this claim. You're claiming to know this technology. You're claiming to be like a great, whatever, penetration tester. Okay, we're going to test you on just what you are claiming and then see where you're at. So
Nice.
that when we're presenting to our clients, it's like, here's some folks and they've already been vetted. Here you can see exactly what they did, and just cuts the whole process kind of short. Because, folks will go through some training. They may, take a couple of courses, and there's topics that they've touched on, and they may list those on their resume, right? As like, okay, I've done this or that. And come to find out, that's really something that, it would take like 5, 10, 15 years to become like really an expert in that area. And you can't have, so many topics that you know or can do, right?
Yeah.
So we're just really cutting out a lot of the noise for our clients in this area.
That goes back to the level of service that you're bringing to your clients and the SLAs. So really cool to hear about what you're doing in the cybersecurity community. It goes back to also just loving recruiting. Like if you don't like to source, like you
Yes.
probably don't have a cutout space
Yeah.
to be successful in the agency world. I think like in my teens, it was what, like, don't trust anyone over 30, and now it's don't trust a recruiter that doesn't work a rec. It changes so fast. I think like there's a lot of folks out there, a lot of ways to hire, and like if you're not working recs, if you're not talking to candidates, if you're not figuring out new ways to find them, I mean, like even this last quarter, LinkedIn changed a ton for the
Yes.
recruiting industry and how people have historically sourced without LinkedIn recruiter licenses. And like if you don't live it and breathe it, I don't know if there's a space for folks to get through this like AI evolution where like mediocrity is really being weeded out.
Yeah. And I think also, like, not just you need to be doing it, you need to be sourcing on real live recs, but it's also who's in your community.
Yeah.
Like, who are you in a Slack channel with that's like telling you, hey, this is what I discovered, or this is what I have tried, or here's a good community of job seekers in this or that area. Like, you need to also not be in the echo chamber of your organization. Or if you're, working from home and it's just you and you're having like check-ins with your team, you got to be kind of like proactive, like asking folks, even though it seems redundant, right? It's like, oh, we've been working all day, we don't want to talk about work. But it is important to be like, hey, I'm interested, like just putting it out there, I'm interested in learning new ways or better ways of doing things. So if you've discovered something, and sometimes it's just like a new feature rolled out within your same ATS. Maybe Greenhouse did something different that's going to make your life easier, but you just didn't see it because you're going through your regular workflow.
Yeah.
But, I mean, to get all philosophical, that's
No,
kind
that dialogue is key.
of, yeah,
And like the events are key, like podcasts, webinars, like showing up for the community, like networking with other recruiters. You get to a point where like a lot of roles can be filled through like your network and referral. And like you don't need like the
right,
fanciest sourcing tool because you're like, oh, yeah, I could fill this with, 10 people I know in my community.
right,
Um, but it's fun to hear like what people are doing and stay immersed in the work, kind of like engineering. Like engineers love to tinker, even if they're a founder or a CTO, like they're probably building something on the side. And I think for recruiting, it's like, who are you sourcing on the side and who are you networking with? Like LinkedIn gives you 150 free connections a week. Like that's 7,000 a year. If they half of them follow you in 2 years, you're at like influencer status just by taking advantage of the free tool.
right, right.
But this has been all awesome, April. You mentioned a couple industries. I want to, wrap things up for today. But you talked about working with enterprise startups. You talked about robotics. You talked about a few other client industries. What are some specialties in terms of industries that Tangerine Search can help companies hire for?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've done, over the last 3, 4 years, we've done a lot actually within AI. So all
That's
of
how you and I met.
exactly, machine learning, computer vision, natural language processing. Just we've got great talent in all of those areas. Um, so yeah, we work with quite a few early stage startups, and I love seeing new things that are going to be hitting the market and kind of getting that insider view of what's coming. Like I said, we have clients within like entertainment, streaming media. I've recruited on video games, mobile and console games. So that's always fun. I love having some reasons that my kids can think I'm cool. Um, you know, banking, fintech, some a little bit of healthcare and health tech. I have a deep background in healthcare recruiting from prior to starting my own agency. And so it's always exciting to see new things. I feel like the innovations are slower to reach healthcare, but it's such a big need. And one area that I'm so excited about is ecology, climate technology. Like I think a lot of people just kind of throw their hands up in the air of like, oh, it's too late. We've already kind of damaged the earth and it's over. And if we didn't have the technology that we do right now, that would be true. Like when I was a kid and growing up, like some of the things, it was true. There was not a way to solve some of the problems that we had created. But we have so many avenues now and so much new technology. It is amazing. And I'm really hoping that we can gather the will, the political will, the desire to try these different technologies, right? Nothing's going to be foolproof and we're going to stumble along the way, just like we have with everything else. But I'm so excited to see us move from so much focus on like social media, for example, or, just like getting food delivered to your house or something, right? To like, okay, how do we sink a bunch of carbon into, the ocean, into kelp
Yes.
forests, into creating different materials. Like, we just hired for a new client working in the biocircular economy, like an incubator for the biocircular economy,
Awesome.
meaning like instead of farms having a bunch of waste, they're directly going to have a place to send their waste to become the next product. Um, so yeah, that's kind of like a passion area for me because, just lifelong ecologist. I really think no matter what else we want to talk about, politics, ways to hire, like interests, hobbies, literally none of it matters if we don't have like breathable air and drinkable water, like back to basics. So I am super excited to see a lot of investment. I'm seeing a ton of venture capital go into these type of companies working on this technology. I'm seeing a lot of government and in the US and other places as well, like in other countries that just really are sending a lot of funding, tax credits, whatever, that are just kind of giving these tailwinds to companies that are really working on solving some of these problems. And it really is a problem space that has no border. So if we're sinking carbon off the coast of, the East Coast in Canada, it's still pulling it out of the environment in the whole world, really. So it's like kind of a great hack where you can work in any part of the globe and help the whole world. So, sorry, that's a big tangent, but I'm so excited on that one.
I am here for it, April. Like that is my passion through and through. It actually reminds me, I have a referral for you for a solar robotics company
Ooh,
that's in Oakland. They've got a robotics studio, so I'll send you that after the call.
awesome.
Um, if you're a startup founder or if you're an engineer in the Bay, like hit up April, hit up Tangerine Search, buy them a coffee, get them out and about. You're always bringing a lot of joy to the clients you work with. So appreciate what you do. It's always good to connect. Before we wrap up, how can people keep up with your agency, and where can they find you?
Absolutely. So Tangerine Search on LinkedIn, tangerinesearch.net on the web. We also, I do want to mention, we have a lot of resources for job seekers on the Find a Job page. So you can, of course, like any company, you can see the open positions we're hiring for. You can also proactively upload your resume, which is the fastest way for us to match you to new positions, right? Like we look in our own database before we go out and source on LinkedIn or wherever. And we also have a course for job seekers, right? Last year with so many layoffs, my phone was ringing all the time, people asking for help. And there's so many things that you learn doing this work, Brandon, that you and I do, right? Like little tips that could make a huge difference in how visible you are to recruiters, like getting yourself on the short list as opposed to, being rejected in the first round of applicants. So that course is also listed there. It's very affordable and broken down into a 4-week segment so as to not be overwhelming, because that
Nice.
is majorly an overwhelming task to go out and look for a job, and one that people don't really get a chance to practice.
That's awesome. I can't wait to check it out. I know you were talking about that last time we spoke, so I'll certainly be tuning in. And thanks everybody for joining us. Tune in for more conversations with top people and talent leaders where we empower the candidate-employer relationship in the future of work. Thanks for joining, April.
Thank you.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to the Rebel TA podcast. If you're a talent acquisition leader or a recruiter looking for a conference to attend in 2024, I'm here to tell you that RecFest is the world's largest talent acquisition conference. RecFestUSA returns to Nashville, Tennessee on September 12th and 13th, 2024, and I am stoked. This is not your average conference. Shout out to Jamie Leonard and the entire crew over at RecFest who produce an incredible event. Tickets are on sale now. Don't sleep. I'll see you in Nashville.